The morning sun stretches across the rolling pastures, bathing everything in a golden glow. Dew glistens on the grass, and the air is thick with the comforting scent of damp earth and fresh hay. My cows, Daisy and Buttercup, stand near the fence, their large, dark eyes watching as I pour fresh feed into their trough. Their gentle chewing is the kind of peace I live for. This land has been in my family for 3 generations, 20 acres of open fields, a sturdy red barn, and a house my granddad built with his own hands. It's a modest place, but it's mine. And I work damn hard to keep it. The neighborhood beyond my fence is a different world. A newly built, pristine, all-white suburban development, Aspen Creek Estates, rises like a fortress against the horizon. McMansions with identical stone facades and chemically green lawns stand in neat, soulless rows. The homeowners there drive SUVs that cost more than my entire property and call the police if they see a black man walking down their street after dark. I don't belong there, and they make sure I know it. At first, it was little things. The way the Aspen Creek joggers would speed up when passing my property, their eyes darting toward my barn like it might swallow them whole. The way parents would grip their kids' hands a little tighter at the farmer's market when I stood behind my stall, selling fresh eggs and raw honey. And then there was her, Linda Watterson, HOA president. 45, blonde bob, Botox smooth scowl. She showed up at my fence 3 weeks ago, her crisp white blouse glowing in the midday sun, holding a clipboard like it was a weapon. "You must be the owner," she had said, her voice dripping with the fake politeness only rich white women in gated communities can master. "We need to talk about your livestock." I'd wiped the sweat from my brow and rested my hands on my hips. "My cows." She had smiled, tight and thin. "They don't quite fit the aesthetic of Aspen Creek." I had laughed. Good thing my land isn't part of Aspen Creek. Her lips had pursed like she'd bitten into a lemon. "Still, this farm life isn't really appropriate, so close to a residential community." I tilted my head. "What exactly are you saying?" She had sighed, glancing toward my cows with barely hidden disgust. "There have been concerns about property values." That was 3 weeks ago. I had hoped that was the end of it. But as I stand by the fence now, sipping my coffee and watching Daisy flick her tail at a fly, a familiar white SUV creeps to a stop at the end of my gravel driveway. Linda Watterson steps out, adjusting the collar of her blazer. She's not alone. 2 other HOA members flank her, their arms crossed like enforcers in a bad mafia movie. My stomach tightens. This isn't over. It's just beginning. Linda does a knock. She never does. Instead, she stands at the end of my driveway like she's waiting for me to acknowledge her presence, as if this is her land, and I'm the unwelcome visitor. The 2 HOA members with her, both middle-aged men in pastel polos and boat shoes, exchange quiet whispers. They look at my cows, my barn, my house, and I can already hear the judgments forming in their heads. Too rural, too messy, too black. I take my time finishing my coffee before walking over. "Linda." She gives a stiff smile. "Mr. Carter." That's new. She never used my last name before. It's always been, "You must be the owner," or "We need to talk about your livestock." Something's different. "We've received more complaints," she says, flipping open a leather-bound folder. "About what?" I ask, though I already know. She doesn't answer right away. Instead, she lifts her chin and breathes in through her nose, like the air itself offends her. "The smell," she finally says. "The noise. The environmental concerns." I let out a dry laugh. "Environmental concerns? You mean my cows?" One of the men clears his throat. "Aspen Creek has a certain standard," he says, shifting uncomfortably. "Most of our homeowners moved here for a peaceful, polished community." I cross my arms. "And you think 2 cows on 20 acres are ruining your polished community?" Linda's eyes flick to my calloused hands, then to my worn work boots. She doesn't say it outright, but I know what she's thinking. People like me don't belong near people like her. She straightens her blazer. "We'd like to resolve this amicably, Mr. Carter. If you voluntarily remove the cows, we won't have to escalate things further." Voluntarily. I echo, stepping closer. Or else what? Linda holds my gaze, unblinking. The HOA has legal avenues. And plenty of resources. That last word lingers in the air like a threat. I feel a familiar tightness in my chest, the same one I felt the first time a store clerk followed me around a high-end boutique, the same one I felt when a cop pulled me over for looking suspicious in a wealthy neighborhood. I exhale slowly. This is my land, and my cows aren't going anywhere. Linda sighs dramatically and closes her folder. I was hoping you'd be reasonable about this. She turns on her heel, the two men following her back to the SUV. Just before she gets in, she pauses, looking over her shoulder. Property values, Mr. Carter. You really should consider what's best for the neighborhood. With that, she slides into the driver's seat and pulls away. I stand there long after they're gone, watching dust settle over the driveway. Something's coming, and I'd be a fool to think they're done with me. I wake to the relentless buzz of my phone. It's an unknown number. My heart pounds as I answer, half expecting another demand. Instead, a gruff voice instructs, Mr. Carter, we need you at the community center immediately. It's urgent. I recognize the tone, a mix of authority and threat. Something isn't right. Inside the community center, tension saturates the air. The polished marble floors and pristine walls are a stark contrast to the raw anger simmering beneath the surface. I find Linda Watterson in the center of a heated gathering, flanked by a couple of stern-faced board members. Their eyes lock on me with an air of superiority that makes my skin crawl. You again, Linda sneers, her voice cold and clipped. We've been discussing your blatant disregard for our community standards. Her tone drips with condescension, and I can see how the other homeowners nod in silent agreement. Their smiles are strained, their eyes harboring unspoken biases. I stand tall. I'm right here, and I'm not going anywhere. I reply firmly. My cows are part of my heritage, and they're not a threat to your precious property values. A murmur ripples through the crowd. I can almost taste the underlying fear and resentment. Linda's eyes narrow. You misunderstand, she hisses. This isn't just about cows. It's about maintaining the integrity of Aspen Creek Estates. We're preserving a certain lifestyle. Her words are calculated, designed to isolate me as the outsider who dares to disrupt their perfect image. I sense the deliberate double standard. Their pristine lawns and luxury cars, a stark contrast to my weathered boots and calloused hands. Before I can respond, one of the board members steps forward, clutching a folder stuffed with what he claims are reports on my property. There have been multiple complaints, he asserts, his voice a rehearsed monotone. Neighbors are disturbed by the noise and smell. It's affecting their quality of life. I watch as their eyes glisten with self-righteous indignation, their unspoken message clear. They are the gatekeepers of this exclusive haven. I lean in, voice low and steady. I've done nothing but care for my land and my animals. If you think I'm harming anyone, then show me the evidence. The challenge hangs in the air, heavy with defiance. I feel the weight of every slight, every racist undertone from their words. Later that day, I gather my closest friends and neighbors, people who know my history and understand the unspoken struggles of being the outsider. Among them is Marcus, a local journalist with a reputation for exposing injustice, and Serena, a longtime friend who has endured her share of prejudice. Over coffee in my modest kitchen, we piece together a plan. Linda's using legal jargon to disguise her personal vendetta, Marcus says, his eyes blazing with determination. We need to document every encounter, every call, every email. And I have a few contacts who might help verify the inconsistencies in their reports. Serena nods, adding, let's also record the meetings. If they claim environmental concerns, we can have the data to prove otherwise. Their words resonate with me, a surge of hope that maybe, just maybe, truth can outweigh their biased narrative. But as the sun sets, the threat becomes palpable. I'm returning from a neighbor's house when I notice a black SUV trailing me. I quicken my pace, heart pounding in my ears, as the vehicle's headlights cut through the dusk. Every step feels like I'm walking on a tightrope suspended above a pit of unknown dangers. Inside, I wrestle with my thoughts. I know that confronting Linda head-on might only provoke her further. But my silence would be an admission of defeat, a surrender to a system built on prejudice and entitlement. My internal monologue races. I won't let them bully me out of my heritage. I won't let their warped notions of community define my life. The following morning, I decide to act. I meet with Marcus at the edge of my property, where the gentle hum of nature contrasts sharply with the escalating human drama. We review the recordings and compile our evidence. Each documented interaction is a small piece of the larger puzzle, a mosaic of bias, discrimination, and abuse of power. With every recorded word and every written complaint, the stakes climb higher. The seemingly minor issue of 2 cows has morphed into a full-blown battle for dignity and justice. I realize that this isn't just about property values. It's about standing up against a system that marginalizes me simply for who I am. Now, armed with evidence and bolstered by community support, I prepare for the inevitable confrontation. The clear line between right and wrong has been drawn, and I'm ready to cross it, no matter the cost. The peaceful rhythm of my life is shattered, replaced by the urgent drumbeat of resistance, a battle where every small act of defiance is a step toward reclaiming what is rightfully mine. Linda Watterson stands at the front of the Aspen Creek HOA meeting like a queen addressing her court. The community center is packed, homeowners, board members, even a few curious onlookers. Every seat is filled, every eye trained on me as I stand near the back, arms crossed. I don't belong here. Not in their eyes. Linda smirks, a predator sensing victory. "Let's get straight to business," she says, her voice dripping with manufactured authority. She flicks through her papers and clears her throat. "We have a pressing matter concerning one resident whose actions are actively diminishing Aspen Creek's standards." I feel the weight of every gaze, the unspoken accusations hanging thick in the air. She turns to me with a practiced look of pity. "Mr. Carter, we have received numerous complaints about your property." I don't move. I don't blink. I just watch her. Linda lifts a stack of neatly printed documents. Noise violations, odor complaints, environmental concerns. And let's not forget, she pauses, savoring the moment, the impact on property values. She says it like it's the final nail in my coffin. Scattered murmurs of agreement ripple through the room. Some residents nod. Others avoid my gaze. They don't want to be part of this, but they also won't stand against it. That's how people like Linda win, through fear, through social pressure, through making the outsider feel like they're already lost. I let her talk. I let her revel in her moment of power. Then I step forward. "Linda," I say, my voice steady. "You've put a lot of effort into making me out to be a problem. But I have one question." She lifts her chin, feigning patience. "Go on." I tilt my head. "Where's your proof?" Silence. Her expression flickers just for a second, but I see it. The brief hesitation. The second of doubt. She recovers quickly. "I have several written complaints," she says, shaking the stack of papers for emphasis. I nod slowly. "From whom?" Her lips tighten. "I'll tell you what I found," I continue, pulling out my own folder. "I went to the city's environmental department. They confirmed that no formal complaints have been filed about my land. No violations. No citations. No confirmed odor complaints." I hold up a stamped document. I had an independent environmental specialist assess my farm. And guess what? My cows aren't the source of any unusual smells. The murmurs grow louder. People shift uncomfortably. Linda's nostrils flare. That doesn't mean the residents aren't bothered. I cut her off. I also pulled Aspen Creek's official property records. And you know what I found? Since I moved in, property values have actually increased. Gasps. A few homeowners exchange glances. I take another step forward. And then there's this. I hold up my phone, thumb hovering over a video. I recorded our last conversation. Linda goes rigid. I hit play. Her voice crackles through the speaker. "This isn't just about cows. It's about maintaining the integrity of Aspen Creek Estates. We're preserving a certain lifestyle. A slow, damning silence spreads across the room. The meaning is clear. It was never about the cows. Never about noise or smell. It was about me. Linda's face goes pale. This is taken out of context, she stammers, her mask of confidence cracking. Is it? I ask, letting the audio play again. Her hands tremble. The board members beside her suddenly look less sure, shifting away from her like she's contagious. Then, the final blow. Marcus, my journalist friend, stands up from the back of the room. I did some digging, he announces, holding up his phone. Turns out, Linda has a long history of selectively enforcing HOA policies. And he gestures to the screen. I spoke with a few former residents she pushed out using the same tactics. They all had something in common. The crowd is deathly silent. They know exactly what he means. Linda looks around, searching for an ally, but no one meets her eyes. For the first time, she looks small. Her arrogance, her power, it's slipping. I step closer, lowering my voice just enough for her to hear. I'm not going anywhere, Linda. And she knows it. The silence is suffocating. Linda's confidence, once ironclad, is cracking right in front of everyone. She stands at the front of the room, gripping the podium like it's the only thing keeping her upright. Her perfect blonde bob, usually pristine, seems out of place now, like a mask slowly slipping off. The audio from my phone still lingers in the air. This isn't just about cows. It's about maintaining the integrity of Aspen Creek Estates. We're preserving a certain lifestyle. The implication is clear. Linda wasn't protecting property values. She was protecting Aspen Creek's whiteness. Murmurs ripple through the crowd. Some HOA members shift uncomfortably. A few homeowners whisper to one another, realizing, perhaps for the first time, that they've been complicit in something much uglier than they imagined. Linda swallows hard, then forces out a tight laugh. This is absurd. She waves a dismissive hand, her voice higher-pitched than before. That audio is completely taken out of context. This man, she gestures at me without even saying my name, is trying to turn a simple zoning dispute into some kind of race issue. I stay quiet. I don't need to argue. The truth is already out in the open. But Marcus isn't done. He steps forward, raising his phone. Funny thing, Linda, I pulled Aspen Creek's official HOA complaint records from the past 5 years. Want to guess how many times you've issued warnings about environmental concerns before this? He pauses, letting the question hang. 0. The murmurs grow louder. Linda's hands clench into fists. That's not relevant. Marcus smirks. Oh, but it is. Because I also found something else. He swipes his phone, and the HOA's overhead projector flickers to life. A list appears on the screen, a spreadsheet of complaints filed by the HOA over the years. At first glance, it looks random, but then the pattern emerges. Every single enforcement action Linda spearheaded was against a person of color. Gasps. A few people, neighbors who once stood by her side, turn to look at her, their faces shifting from discomfort to outright suspicion. Linda is sweating now. This is slander. I step forward, keeping my voice calm. Is it? She glares at me, her lips pressing into a thin line. Then she switches tactics, turning to the room with a desperate laugh. Okay, so what? Maybe I was concerned about the neighborhood, about its future. Is that wrong? Someone in the crowd speaks up, an older white man, one of the homeowners who had nodded along with her just moments ago. You told me last month that we needed to get rid of the wrong elements before this place turned into the next Brookwood Heights. A few people gasp. Brookwood Heights is a well-known, predominantly black neighborhood in the next county over. Linda's face drains of color. That's not what I meant. Before she can finish, another voice rises. Linda, I just realized something. A middle-aged woman, one of the more affluent residents, frowns. Didn't you approve Roger Thompson's backyard chickens last year? The energy in the room shifts. Roger, a balding man sitting near the front, suddenly looks up in alarm. Yes. The woman folds her arms. And that wasn't an environmental issue? even though his coop is right next to his neighbor's fence. Linda's mouth opens, then closes. She's trapped. More voices join in. And what about the Carsons' loud pool parties? What about Bill's 3 Great Danes? Why didn't you ever complain about the golf carts on the street? The air is turning against her, and she knows it. Her once loyal supporters are now realizing they were pawns in something much bigger. I step even closer, lowering my voice so only she can hear. This isn't about rules. This is about control. And you just lost it. Her jaw tightens. Then, in a final act of desperation, she tries to flip the script. You don't understand, she shrieks. I was protecting this community. People like him don't care about what makes this neighborhood special. The words are barely out of her mouth before she realizes her mistake. The gasps are louder now. Someone actually stands up in outrage. She just said it. Out loud. The unspoken bias, the coded language, it's all been stripped away. And now, even the people who might have excused her before can't pretend anymore. A hushed voice mutters from the back. Jesus Christ, Linda. Marcus doesn't hesitate. He clicks his phone, sending out a mass email. That's the HOA's entire history of selective enforcement, plus a transcript of everything she just said. It's in your inboxes now. Phones buzz across the room. A few people check theirs. Faces pale. Linda is frozen. She looks around wildly, searching for an ally, but no one meets her gaze. The board members, the very people who once stood beside her, step back. Her world is collapsing. Linda Watterson, one of the board members, finally says, his voice heavy. Effective immediately, you are removed from your position as HOA president. Her mouth falls open. What? You can't. We can. And we are. She turns to the crowd, desperate. You all are making a huge mistake. I was trying to help you. But no one is listening. Security steps forward. A uniformed officer, the town sheriff, walks in, looking between us. We also need to have a conversation, Mrs. Watterson. Her eyes go wide. Wait, what? Marcus smirks. Turns out, targeting homeowners based on race is not just an HOA violation, it's a civil rights violation. And some of your past targets are considering legal action. Linda's breath stutters. This is insane. The sheriff steps forward. Ma'am, I need you to come with me. And just like that, it's over. Linda Watterson, the woman who tried to run me off my own land, is escorted out of the very community she once ruled. The HOA turns against her. The community rejects her, and the reputation she held so dearly crumbles into dust. And me? I walk out of that meeting the same way I walked in, head held high. Only this time, I'm undeniably victorious. The next morning, Linda Watterson's fall from grace is everywhere. Marcus's article goes live at dawn, and by noon, it's been shared hundreds of times. The headline is brutal. HOA president exposed for racial bias. Aspen Creek in turmoil. Screenshots of Linda's selective enforcement records flood local Facebook groups. The video of her meltdown at the HOA meeting? Viral. By the afternoon, the news stations pick it up. By the evening, she's trending. It turns out, Linda's history of discrimination didn't just start with me. Former residents, Black, Latino, Asian, come forward with eerily similar stories. Fines for minor violations. HOA meetings where their concerns were dismissed. Random compliance checks that somehow never seem to apply to their white neighbors. The lawsuits start rolling in within the week. Public humiliation and financial ruin. Linda tries to fight back. She issues a statement, calling the accusations an attack on good, traditional communities. But no one buys it. Her sponsors pull out. The real estate firms she worked with cut ties. Her husband, who'd been backing her financially, quietly files for divorce. And then, the final blow, Aspen Creek Estates bans her from serving on any HOA board. Ever. It's poetic justice. The woman who tried to control this neighborhood has now lost everything: her power, her reputation, her influence. The neighborhood reacts. The community shifts in ways I never expected. A week after the meeting, my neighbor, George, an older white man who'd always avoided me, walks over to my fence. He looks awkward, shifting on his feet, then finally says, I didn't see it before. What she was doing. I raise an eyebrow. He clears his throat. I'm not saying I agreed with her, but I let it happen. And, I shouldn't have. He nods toward my cows. They're not so bad. I let out a laugh. I told you. He nods again. Then, in a quiet voice, he says, I'm glad you stayed. Others start coming around, too. The same people who once signed Linda's petitions now wave when I drive past. Some stop by to buy fresh eggs from my farm stand. A few even ask if they can bring their kids by to see the cows. It's not an overnight change, but it's something. A moment of peace. One evening, as the sun sets over my land, I lean against the fence, watching my cows graze. The sky is painted in streaks of orange and pink. There's a stillness here, a peace Linda tried to take from me. Marcus walks up beside me, hands in his pockets. Hell of a fight you put up. I smirk. Hell of a takedown you rode. He chuckles. Linda won't be bothering you anymore. No, I say, watching as my cows move lazily across the pasture. She won't. I exhale, feeling the weight of it all. The struggle, the frustration, the victory. Linda thought she could run me out. Instead, she's the one who lost everything. And I'm still here.